Today is the 21st of August, and we are at the chapter 42, Gammani Sangyutta. So now we come to Sutta 42.8. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Nalanda in Pavarika's mango grove. Then Asibandakaputta, the head man, a lay disciple of the Nigantas, approached the Blessed One, exchanged greetings and all that, and sat down to one side. The Blessed One then said to him as he was sitting to one side, "In what way, head man, does Niganta Nataputta teach the Dhamma to his disciples?" Noble Sir, Niganta Nataputta teaches the Dhamma to his disciples thus: anyone at all who destroys life is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Anyone at all who takes what is not given is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Anyone at all who engages in sexual misconduct is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Anyone at all who speaks falsehood is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. One is led on to rebirth by the manner in which one usually dwells. It is in such a way, Venerable Sir, that Niganta Nataputta teaches the Dhamma to his disciples. And the Buddha said, "If, headman, it were the case that one is led on to rebirth by the manner in which one usually dwells, then according to Niganta Nataputta's word, no one at all would be bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. What do you think, headman? In the case of a person who destroys life, if one compares one occasion with another, whether by day or by night, which is more frequent, the occasions when he is destroying life or those when he is not doing so?" And Asibandakaputta said, "In the case of a person who destroys life, Venerable Sir, if one compares one occasion with another, whether by day or by night, the occasions when he is destroying life are infrequent, while those when he is not doing so are frequent." And the Buddha said, "So, headman, if it were the case that one is led on to rebirth by the manner in which one usually dwells, then according to Niganta Nataputta's word, no one at all would be bound for a state of misery, bound for hell." Stop here for a moment. So this Niganta Nataputta says that one is led on to rebirth by the manner in which one usually dwells. So if a person is a killer, whether he is a butcher or he is a soldier or what, the Buddha says that in one day, 24 hours, how much time does he spend killing? Maybe an hour or two. But the rest of the time, that means 23 hours or 22 hours, he does not do any killing. So most of the time, he does not do any killing, and that is the manner in which he usually dwells. So he won't go to hell, because most of the time he doesn't kill. What do you think, headman? In the case of a person who takes what is not given, or who engages in sexual misconduct, or who speaks falsehood, if one compares one occasion with another, whether by day or by night, which is more frequent, the occasions when he is speaking falsehood, or those when he is not speaking falsehood? In the case of a person who speaks falsehood, Venerable Sir, if one compares one occasion with another, whether by day or by night, the occasions when he is speaking falsehood are infrequent, while those when he is not speaking falsehood are frequent. Then the Buddha said, "So, headman, if it were the case that one is led on to rebirth by the manner in which one usually dwells, then according to Niganta Nataputta's word, no one at all would be bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Here, headman, some teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this: anyone at all who destroys life, who takes what is not given, who engages in sexual misconduct, who speaks falsehood, is bound for a state of misery, is bound for hell." Then the disciple has full confidence in that teacher. It occurs to him, "My teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this: anyone at all who destroys life, is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Now I have destroyed life, so I too am bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Thus he acquires such a view. If he does not abandon that assertion and that state of mind, and if he does not relinquish that view, then according to his deserts, he will be, as it were, dropped off in hell. It occurs to him, my teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this. Anyone at all who takes what is not given is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Now I have taken what is not given, so I too am bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Thus he acquires such a view. If he does not abandon that assertion, he will be, as it were, dropped off in hell. It occurs to him, my teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this. Anyone at all who engages in sexual misconduct is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Now I have engaged in sexual misconduct, so I too am bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Thus he acquires such a view. If he does not abandon that assertion, that view, he will be, as it were, dropped off in hell. It occurs to him, my teacher holds such a doctrine and view as this. Anyone at all who speaks falsehood is bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Now I have spoken falsehood, so I too am bound for a state of misery, bound for hell. Thus he acquires such a view. If he does not abandon that assertion, that view, he will be, as it were, dropped off in hell. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says that this teacher says that anyone at all who breaks the precepts is bound for hell. So his disciple, the disciple of that teacher, he has full confidence in that teacher. He believes thoroughly what the teacher says. So because these precepts, it's not possible to keep 100%. So because he has broken some of the precepts, so he believes what the teacher says, that he is bound for hell. And then the Buddha says, if he holds such a view and such an assertion, and his state of mind is like that, so when he dies, he will naturally go to hell because he believes that he's going to hell. So which reminds us there's a lot of wrong views around, and a lot of people believe their teacher and believe all these wrong views. And the Buddha says, if you have wrong view about karma, then you either one of two rebirths, one is hell, the other one is the animal realm. Then the Buddha continued. But here, head man, Tathagata arises in the world, an Arahant, perfectly enlightened, accomplished in true knowledge and conduct, fortunate, knower of the world, unsurpassed teacher of persons to be tamed, teacher of devas and humans, the enlightened one, the blessed one. In many ways he criticizes and censures the destruction of life, and he says, abstain from the destruction of life. He criticizes and censures the taking of what is not given, and he says, abstain from taking what is not given. He criticizes and censures sexual misconduct, and he says, abstain from sexual misconduct. He criticizes and censures false speech, and he says, abstain from false speech. Then his disciple has full confidence in that teacher. He reflects thus. In many ways, the Blessed One criticizes and censures the destruction of life, and he says, abstain from the destruction of life. Now, I have destroyed life to such and such an extent. That wasn't proper, that wasn't good. But though I feel regret over this, that evil deed of mine cannot be undone. Having reflected thus, he abandons the destruction of life, and he abstains from the destruction of life in the future. Thus there comes about the abandoning of that evil deed. Thus there comes about the transcending of that evil deed. He reflects thus, in many ways the Blessed One criticizes and censures the taking of what is not given, and he says, abstain from taking what is not given. Now I have taken what is not given to such and such an extent. That wasn't proper, that wasn't good. But though I feel regret over this, that evil deed of mine cannot be undone. Having reflected thus, he abandons the taking of what is not given, and he abstains from taking what is not given in the future. Thus there comes about the abandoning of that evil deed. Thus there comes about the transcending of that evil deed. He reflects thus. In many ways, the Blessed One criticizes and censures sexual misconduct, And he says, abstain from sexual misconduct. Now I have engaged in sexual misconduct to such and such an extent. That wasn't proper. That wasn't good. But though I feel regret over this, that evil deed of mine cannot be undone. Having reflected thus, he abandons sexual misconduct and he abstains from sexual misconduct in the future. Thus there comes about the abandoning of that evil deed. Thus there comes about the transcending of that evil deed. He reflects thus, in many ways the Blessed One criticizes and censures false speech. And he says, abstain from false speech. Now I have spoken falsehood to such and such an extent. That wasn't proper, that wasn't good. But though I feel regret over this, that evil deed of mine cannot be undone. Having reflected thus, he abandons false speech, and he abstains from false speech in the future. Thus there comes about the abandoning of that evil deed. Thus there comes about the transcending of that evil deed. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says, he's unlike that Niganta Nataputta. That Niganta Nataputta says that if you break any of the precepts, you will definitely go to hell. But the Buddha doesn't say that. Buddha says breaking the precepts is not skillful, not wholesome. Criticizes the breaking of the precepts. And the Buddha encourages his disciples to abstain from wrong conduct. So to keep the precepts. So when a person follows the Buddha and he reflects that he has broken the precepts, he knows that he should not have done it. But the Buddha doesn't say that he will go to hell. So he realizes that it's not good. So he makes a determination that in the future he will not do it again. So that's the way we practice the precepts. Just like a child or a baby learning to walk. When the baby falls down, he gets up and tries again. Falls down, he gets up again. Gets up as many times as is necessary. So in the same way, when we keep the precepts, every now and then we break the precepts. But it doesn't matter how many times we break. We just keep on trying to behave better. So especially when we reflect, before we came to the Dhamma, we did a lot of wrong things. At that time, because of ignorance, we did a lot of wrong things. We broke the precepts. But now that we understand that it's not good, so we don't walk that path, because that path goes to the woeful plains. So we slowly change our character for the better. So slowly as we change our character for the better, and then slowly we become like the ugly duckling, becoming a beautiful swan. And the Buddha continued, having abandoned the destruction of life, he abstains from the destruction of life. Having abandoned the taking of what is not given, he abstains from taking what is not given. Having abandoned sexual misconduct, he abstains from sexual misconduct. Having abandoned false speech, he abstains from false speech. Having abandoned actually it's not divisive speech, it should be malicious speech. Having abandoned malicious speech. Malicious speech means speech that is motivated by anger. And there are two types of speech motivated by anger. One is slandering somebody else, telling lies, slandering another person, or hearing A talking bad about B. You go and tell B, A said such and such a thing, and you cause A and B to quarrel. So that is divisive speech. So this is having abandoned malicious speech. He abstains from malicious speech. Having abandoned harsh speech, he abstains from harsh speech. Having abandoned idle chatter, he abstains from idle chatter. Having abandoned covetousness, he is uncovetous. Having abandoned ill will and hatred, he has a mind without ill will. Having abandoned wrong view, he is one of right view. Stop here for a moment. So here is a list of all of the 10 unwholesome karmas. This is something you must always keep in mind. You must memorize these 10 unwholesome karmas because it is very important to abstain from these 10 unwholesome karmas. They are karmas through the body, speech and mind. Through the body, there are 3 wrong karmas, 3 evil karmas. One is killing, another one is taking what is not given or stealing. Third is sexual misconduct or adultery. So the body, 3 evil body karmas. Then 4 evil verbal karmas. Through the mouth, we can do wrong by false speech, lying. Secondly, malicious speech. Then thirdly, harsh speech or coarse speech, using foul language and loud speech and all that. Then the 4th is idle chatter, gossip. So through the mouth we can do 4 wrong karmas. And then mental karma, there are 3. First is covetousness, greed for other people's things, greed for other people's property, greed for other people's husband or wife, is covetousness. And then the second mental evil karma is having a lot of ill will, having a lot of anger and hatred in the mind. That is the second one. Third one is wrong view. Wrong view means not believing in karma vipaka, not believing that after death there is rebirth, that there is life, not believing that there are holy men who walk the spiritual path and can become liberated and all that. So that is wrong view. So these 10 always keep in mind not to do any one of these 10 unwholesome karmas, because if you constantly do any one of these evil karmas, can bring you to hell. And the Buddha continued. Then headman, the noble disciple, who is thus devoid of covetousness, devoid of ill will, unconfused, clearly comprehending, ever mindful, dwells pervading 1 quarter with the mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd quarter, the 3rd quarter, and the 4th quarter, thus above, below, across, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he dwells pervading the entire world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, vast, exalted, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. Just as a strong conch blower can easily send his signal to the 4 quarters, so too, when the liberation by mind of loving kindness is developed and cultivated in this way, any limited karma that was done does not remain there, does not persist there. Stop here for a moment. This one is liberation by mind or release by mind of loving kindness. That means the mind is so strong, it radiates loving kindness. We can call it radiation by mind of loving kindness. He dwells pervading 1 quarter with the mind imbued with compassion, karuna, with the mind imbued with joy, mudita, with the mind imbued with equanimity, upekha. Likewise the 2nd quarter, the 3rd quarter, and the 4th quarter, thus above, below, across, and everywhere, and to all as to himself, he dwells pervading the entire world with the mind imbued with these 4 qualities. Vast, exalted, measureless, without hostility, without ill will. Just as a strong conch blower can easily send his signal to the 4 quarters, so too when the liberation by mind of equanimity or any of the 4 is developed and cultivated in this way, any limited karma that was done does not remain there, does not persist there. When this was said, Asibandaka Putta, the headman, said to the Blessed One, "Magnificent, Venerable Sir, magnificent." And he took refuge in the triple gems. And he said, "From today, let the Blessed One remember me as a lay follower who has gone for refuge for life." In other words, he changed his religion from the Nigantas to the Buddha. So this quite a nice sutta about karma. So always remember in the Buddha's teachings, if we do wrong, we don't regret too much. Always think of the future. What is past, don't go and have a lot of remorse. Only have the remorse to the extent that we make a determination not to repeat it. Don't be like some people, they have remorse over the past and they commit suicide. The next sutta is 42.9. On one occasion, the Blessed One, while wandering on tour among the Kosalans, together with a large sangha of monks, arrived at Nalanda. He stayed there at Nalanda in Pavarika's mango grove. Stop here for a while. This Kosala is one of the 2 powerful countries during the Buddha's time, Kosala and Magadha. And the king of Kosala is Pasenadi. I think we read one Sangyutta about Pasenadi, Raja of Kosala. So he stayed at Nalanda. At Pavarika's mango grove. Now on that occasion, Nalanda was in the grip of famine, a time of scarcity, with crops blighted and turned to straw. On that occasion, Niganta Nataputta was residing at Nalanda, together with a large retinue of Nigantas. Then Asibandaka Putta, the headman, a lay disciple of the Nigantas, approached Niganta Nataputta, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. Niganta Nataputta then said to him, "Come, headman, refute the doctrine of the ascetic Gotama. Then a good report concerning you will be spread about thus. Asibandaka Putta, the headman, has refuted the doctrine of the ascetic Gotama, who is so powerful and mighty." Stop here for a moment. So, the Buddha with a large sangha of monks was at Nalanda. And this Niganta Nataputta, he also was in the same place, Nalanda, with a large retinue of his monks. So he was jealous of the Buddha, because the Buddha had a very good reputation. So because he was jealous, he asked his lay follower Asibandaka Putta to go and argue with the Buddha and win the argument. But he himself dare not go, you see. He's very smart. Instead of going himself, he go and ask this headman to go and argue for him. And then this Asibandaka Putta asked him, "But how, Venerable Sir, shall I refute the doctrine of the ascetic Gotama, who is so powerful and mighty?" And then he said, "Go, headman, approach the ascetic Gotama and ask him, 'Venerable Sir, doesn't the Blessed One in many ways praise sympathy towards families, the protection of families, compassion towards families?' If when he is questioned by you thus, the ascetic Gotama answers, 'Yes, headman, the Tathagata in many ways praises sympathy for families, the protection of families, compassion for families,' then you should say to him, 'Then why, Venerable Sir, is the Blessed One wandering on tour with a large sangha of monks at a time of famine, a time of scarcity, when crops are blighted and have turned to straw? The Blessed One is practicing for the annihilation of families, for the calamity of families, for the destruction of families. When the ascetic Gotama is posed this dilemma by you, he will neither be able to throw it up nor to gulp it down." Let's stop here for a moment. So this Niganta Nataputta told this headman to ask the Buddha, "You are supposed to be compassionate. Why you go around with a large sangha of monks and bringing hardship to the people? The people are already experiencing famine, not enough to eat. Now you bring such a large sangha of monks begging for food. You are causing people difficulty. They already don't have enough to eat. Then Asibandaka Putta, the headman, said, "Yes, Venerable Sir." Then he rose from his seat, and after paying homage to Niganta Nataputta, keeping him on his right, he departed and went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to the Blessed One, he sat down to one side and said to him, "Venerable Sir, doesn't the Blessed One in many ways praise sympathy for families, the protection of families, compassion for families?" And he said, "Yes, headman, the Tathagata in many ways praises sympathy for families, protection of families, compassion for families." "Then why, Venerable Sir, is the Blessed One wandering on tour with a large sangha of monks at a time of famine, a time of scarcity, when crops are blighted and have turned to straw? The Blessed One is practicing for the annihilation of families, for the calamity of families, for the destruction of families." And the Buddha said, "I recollect, or I remember, 91 aeons, that means world cycles back, headman, but I do not recall any family that has ever been destroyed merely by offering cooked alms food. Rather, whatever families there are that are rich, with much wealth and property, with abundant gold and silver, with abundant possessions and means of subsistence, with abundant wealth and grain, they all have become so from giving, from truthfulness and from self-control." Stop here for a moment. So the Buddha says, just because they give food, to monks, they share their food with monks, it doesn't mean that they are destroyed. In fact, it's the opposite. If they give in the future, they'll be very, very rich. In fact, in the suttas, the Buddha always says, what is difficult to do is more meritorious. So like at the time of famine, when it's difficult to give and they can give, the merit is even more than in the time when there is no famine. And then also the Buddha says here that three things makes a person very wealthy. One is giving, charity. Second one is truthfulness. And the third is self-control. Self-control, that means you keep the precepts. You don't overindulge yourself in wine, women and song and all that. And then the Buddha continued. It meant there are 8 causes and conditions for the destruction of families. Families come to destruction on account of the king, on account of thieves, and on account of fire, or on account of water, or they do not find what they have put away, or mismanaged undertakings fail, or there arises within a family a wastrel who squanders, dissipates, and fritters away its wealth, and impermanence is the 8th. These are the 8 causes and conditions for the destruction of families. But while these 8 causes and conditions for the destruction of families exist, if anyone speaks thus of me, the Blessed One is practicing for the annihilation of families, for the calamity of families, for the destruction of families. If he does not abandon that assertion and that state of mind, and if he does not relinquish that view, then according to his deserts, he will be, as it were, dropped off in hell. When this was said, Asibandaka Putta, the head man, said to the Blessed One, Magnificent Venerable Sir, Magnificent Venerable Sir, and then he took refuge in the 3 triple gems and became a lay follower of the Buddha. So this last part, the Buddha says, 8 causes and conditions cause the downfall of a family, destruction of family. One is the king. For some reason, if you antagonize the king can get his soldiers to slaughter your whole family. During those times, the king was very powerful. Secondly, because of thieves or bandits, they can come and rob your house and kill your family members. Number 3, because of fire. Fire can destroy all your property. Number 4, because of water. Flood waters can kill all your crops, all your property. And then the 5th, they do not find what they have put away. That means they are careless. They simply, they don't look after their things properly. This one, a lot of people sometimes are very careless. Because you think we have a lot of things simply can throw away. But actually, it's not good. Then another one, mismanaged undertakings fail. That means you do something and like business, business fails, or you plant crops and the crops fail, or whatever. Or there arises within a family a wastrel who squanders, dissipates, and fritters away his wealth. That means one of the family members is a squanderer, squanders away the property that was hard-earned. So in any organization also you have like this. Even in the monastery as well, we have to be careful. Sometimes some people stay in the monastery, and especially monks, because monks sometimes they think everything belongs to the Sangha. Sometimes they can waste things. They forget that the Sangha things are meant for the Sangha of the future. And then impermanence is, they say, the wealthy family usually doesn't go past 3 generations or something. Unless the family is very careful, then otherwise the wealth cannot continue in the family. So these are the 8 causes for the destruction of families. How families can come to ruin. So you have a family man, you take note of this. Now the next sutta is 42.10. I just mentioned one other thing. I see in this sutta, because of jealousy, this Nigantha Nataputta tried to slander the Buddha. And sometimes for other reasons, sometimes even within our Buddhist religion, sometimes some people don't like a particular monk because he teaches different from what they are accustomed to hear. So sometimes for that reason they don't like him. Sometimes they can slander him, but they don't understand the karma is very bad.